Today, we're going to talk about 5 drinks that can help remove fat from your liver. First of all, what is your liver? Your liver is an organ in your body. It's one of the largest organs in your body. It actually plays an absolutely critical role in detoxifying your body, but it does this through your blood. Your blood sends a huge volume into your liver filters it, and the cells of your liver basically clean your blood, remove those toxins, and send it on its way to get more oxygen and nutrients to be pumped out. The liver actually has some fat in it and can hold on to fat. When you have more fat than your body can store, it winds up being sent to the liver. Think of the liver as a storage area for extra fat, and it can build up there until your body needs that fuel, which comes in the form of fat, and burns it right down. Alright. We're going to come into this a little bit more, but your liver's main function is to cleanse and detoxify your body. So, what's the connection between fat, body fat, and liver fat? I'm going to walk you through what happens when you eat and how your liver plays a role when it comes to fat. When you eat food, alright, whatever it is, even healthy foods, you chew it, it goes into your system, you digest it, and your metabolism, your body's hardwired, takes the energy from the food you've eaten and stores it in your muscles, uses it in the blood, and anything extra can be stored in body fat. The body fat can store it anywhere. It can store it under your skin, subcutaneous fat, or it can store it in the center of your body. Okay. The tube of your body can have fat. It's called visceral fat. A little bit of visceral fat is normal. It's a storage area. A lot of visceral fat is dangerous, and it doesn't matter how big you are. You could be real thin and have a skinny tube of your body, but it can be packed with fat. Then you're active, you're using up energy, you're burning down the fuel, alright. Until it's time to load up again on your fuel. Think of your body like a car. You alternate between going fast down a road to do your business versus looking at the fuel tank and seeing it's low. You have to fill up again. Filling up is like eating. When you eat, you store it in your fuel tank, alright, just like a car at a filling station. In the case of your body, energy is actually stored in body fat until you burn it down, alright. Now, what happens if you start to accumulate more and more fat? Fat is accumulated in cells called adipocytes, alright. These are special fat cells that you're born with. In fact, it's one of the early cells that forms in your body. It's critical because adipocytes, or fat cells, are fuel tanks for your body. Unlike a fuel tank in a car, which is made out of metal and is very rigid, the adipocyte, or fat cell, is stretchy. You can take a fat cell, load it up with fat, and it can stretch up to 3 times its size, 300% larger. If you do that over and over again, you can see how your body will start to swell. That's how fat grows. When your body is burning fuel, you're exercising, you're in motion, the body draws down the fuel that's stored. It even does it when you're not in motion. When you're sleeping, your body will burn down that fuel as well at night, alright. Whenever you're not taking in calories, you're not eating, your body is going to switch gears and start to burn down that fat, alright. When you exercise or are in motion, you're going to burn it down even faster. That's how body fat is built up, and that's how it's burned down. That's just part of the cycle of life. Now, when your body fat is filled up, let's say you're eating and overeating, that's actually one of the most common causes of fat accumulating in your liver. You're eating too many calories, those calories are going into your stomach, they're being absorbed in your bloodstream, and now you have to store them. You store them in body fat. Remember I told you a single fat cell can swell 3 times its size, and then the next fat cell needs to get stored up, and it'll swell 3 times its size, and then the third one swells 3 times its size, over and over again. You're loading up on your calories, alright. With overeating, you're way overloading on the fat. The fat is building up, you're kind of running out of fat storage. It calls on your stem cells in your fat to make more fat cells. When I went to medical school, I was always taught by my professors that you're born with all the fat you're ever going to have. That's not true. We now know with more modern research that in fact, fat can actually generate more of itself, alright. It does this when it needs to, through these stem cells. So, energy in your body can be stored in fat. Fat can expand, and then the fat will shrink when you're burning down the energy, but what happens if you keep on overeating, way more than you're actually burning it down, right? Think of this like a sink, right? A sink in your bathroom or your kitchen. You've got the spigot on, that's energy coming in, that's like fuel coming in. You have a drain removing the fluid, that's burning away that energy, alright. A couple of things can happen. If there is a blockage in the sink, there's no outflow. Guess what? You can eat regular amounts of food, put regular amounts of water into your sink, and it'll build up, build up, build up, and overflow. This is what happens when you have liver failure, and livers can fail when they're full of fat. When livers are full of fat, they're not functioning properly, and you're not able to burn down that fat because there's so much fat in it. The more fat you eat, it just keeps swelling and building up, alright. The other thing you can do to overwhelm your sink is if you put the spigot on full, alright, and the drain doesn't change, and you walk away, and now your water level goes up, 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 up. It's the same thing in your body. Fat and fuel goes up, 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 up. Eventually it's going to spill over. This is what actually happens with fat cells in your body. When you're storing fuel, you're eating, overeating some more, still overeating, alright. Now your fat cells swell, eventually there's spillage, just like the sink that you put the spigot on wide open. Water flows out of the sink down into the floor, alright. Water has to go someplace. Guess what? When you overeat, and you overwhelm the capacity of fat to store that fuel, what happens? The fat, the energy, spills out of the fat into your bloodstream, and now you've actually overflowed the tank. In your human body, that overflow gets caught by the liver. Remember I told you, the liver's job is to detoxify. When you've got this spillage of fat, think about an oil tanker running aground and spilling all the oil in the ocean. When that happens in your body, and you've got fat spilling out, your liver basically jumps into action to detoxify the body. It absorbs all that fat and stores it all up, okay. It's just another sink, it's another storage area for all this extra fat. Your body doesn't want to lose energy that is captured, so it'll store it in the liver. The liver gets filled with fat. Remember I told you, when you overload the liver with fat, it stops functioning properly. Remember what I said about the function of the liver. It is a detoxifier in your body. When you've got too much fat that's overflowed your tanks of fat tissue, and that fat overflows into your liver accumulates it, and now it knocks out your liver function, and now the liver can't detoxify. That can cause all kinds of problems, right? Because now you're not detoxifying other things as well. The liver also makes proteins, and when your liver's not functioning well, it's also not going to make the right kinds of proteins. What kind of proteins? Like the proteins you need to clot your blood. When you have liver failure, your liver is unable to make those substances that help your blood clot, so you become highly vulnerable to bleeding hemorrhage, which can be fatal, alright. There are real consequences to overloading your liver and having fatty liver accumulate. This is why we're talking about this, alright. Here's the thing. Fatty liver, due to overconsumption, is the #1 cause today for, and the need of, liver transplantation. That's quite a change from when I was in medical school, learning it was alcoholism. Alcoholics had a liver transplant because their livers got shot, and people with hepatitis also had shot livers. Now, in today's world, with the overabundance of food, and overconsumption of calories, it's actually livers. By the way, this non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is happening in younger and younger people, alright. Not good. Remember I told you, the liver has to detoxify your body, alright. Now, when the liver's actually packed with fat, guess what? It also leaks fat out of your liver, and now, you also have lipolysis, and you've got fat in your bloodstream as well. So, fatty liver overflows your tank, not good. So what are some of the symptoms that you have a fatty liver? Well, if you have it, you probably know. You're more tired, fatigued, have malaise, and feel just kind of crummy overall. Your liver is located in the right upper quadrant, so you might actually have some discomfort because the liver is kind of swollen a little bit. Now, eventually, when the liver shuts down, you can have cirrhosis, that's basically a liver shutdown. It causes scarring in the liver, leading to liver shutdown, and some of the things that people experience are itchy skin. The liver is supposed to pass a large volume of blood in order to detoxify. If it's not working properly, the fluid backs up, and guess where that fluid goes? It gets deposited into the hollow of your belly. It's called the peritoneal space, and the fluid that builds up is called ascites. In fact, you can actually shake the belly and you'll hear it sloshing around. Sometimes, what we have to do is put a needle in there to drain that fluid. It's a real problem when you have liver failure. That fluid backing up isn't only in the belly, it's also down to your legs. So how many people have you seen with swollen legs? Well, liver damage is one of the causes of edema, and you can actually put your finger into the swollen part of the leg. It's like putting it into bread dough. It'll cause pitting, a space, and leave a mark right there in that value zone. Remember I told you liver failure is also accompanied by problems with your circulation. We can start to develop these, I call them spider angiomas, because they look like tiny little blood vessel spiders that are forming on your skin. And, of course, because you're not detoxifying your blood, the toxins back up, and guess what? Your skin can start to turn yellowish, and the sclera of your eyes, the white of your eyes, can also become yellowish. So, medical doctors like me, if we are examining somebody in the emergency room, the clinic, or the ICU, we are actually looking at the skin and sclera in the eyes for signs of liver damage, cirrhosis, or liver failure. Okay. Now, when you get to that end stage where pretty much everything is shot, guess what? You're going to need help, and that help might just rely on getting a liver transplant. It's hard to get a liver transplant because there aren't enough livers to go around. But the reason we're having this whole conversation, and the reason that I think it's really critical for me to communicate this issue to you, is because the liver, before it fails, is quite resilient. The liver can actually regenerate, alright. And so, if you actually unburden the liver by burning down more fat, alright. Before you get to the end game, you can allow your liver to kind of grow itself back, and you can actually be okay again. Here's the thing about the liver, if you took the liver and removed 2/3 of it, okay. Cut away 2/3 of it, 1/3 of it left will actually grow itself back over a period of months. So, the liver is highly regenerative, it wants to actually do it. That's how important it is in your body, alright. It's a highly resilient organ. So, if you've got fatty liver and you burn down the fat, you're going to unpack your liver, unburden your liver, and allow it to actually regenerate. If you are on your way to a fatty liver or you want to avoid a fatty liver, you definitely want to actually burn that fat away, alright. And that's really, really critical. So, let's talk about the 5 beverages that you can actually drink to unburden your liver by burning away body fat, harmful excess body fat. Beverage number 1, green tea. Here it is again, the ubiquitous green tea when it comes to health. What's in tea? What's in green tea? It's got a polyphenol, a catechin called EGCG. Epigallocatechin gallate, EGCG, alright. And you know what EGCG does? It does a lot of things, okay. But in this case, for burning down fat, it activates brown fat thermogenesis. So, let me explain this to you. Green tea activates brown fat thermogenesis, and brown fat is kind of a special kind of fat in your body, it's good fat. It's not wiggly jiggly, it's not under your arms, it's not under your chin, it's not in your muffin top. Brown fat is wafer thin, and it's plastered around your neck, a little bit behind your breastbone, between your shoulder blades, and a little bit of your belly. And when brown fat is activated, and green tea will activate, the EGCG will activate the brown fat. What that does is that fires up kind of like a space heater, alright. And when it fires up a space heater, it's going to require energy to create heat. Thermogenesis is creating heat, alright. And in order to create that heat, that energy that brown fat uses is drawn from excess body fat, like visceral fat, alright. So this is actually a way to turn on good fat to burn down bad fat, and it's a way of actually lowering overall excess harmful body fat in your body. Green tea can actually do this. And another analogy that I often give for what brown fat does, thermogenesis, is if you have a range in your kitchen, right? With a gas range, what do you do when you want to heat up a pot of water or cook some soup? Go to the range, you turn on the knob, the dial, and you go click, 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 whoosh, right. That's what happens. Now you cook the pot on, you can boil it. Now, when you go click, 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 whoosh, you're actually drawing fuel, gas from your gas line, maybe a gas tank by the side of your house, or maybe town gas, into that burner, and then when you ignite it, whoosh. Now you've got that flame. That's exactly like what brown fat actually does, and it's burning down the fuel from your excess white fat, okay. That's bad fat. Good fat versus bad fat. Green tea can actually do that. Now, how do we know that it actually works? Well, this has been studied in the laboratory, and green tea and EGCG can actually have that effect on brown fat when you study it in the microscope, in the lab. But more importantly, it works in the clinic, it works in real people. So, studies in Iran have looked at women, 70 women who are coming from a diabetes clinic and they have metabolic syndrome, alright. Now this is kind of on your way towards diabetes and otherwise badness due to excess body fat and problems in your metabolisms. So, you know what are the signs you have metabolic syndrome. High blood pressure, high blood cholesterol, high lipids, high blood sugar, and a large waist circumference. Waist circumference is actually kind of a marker of how much body fat you actually have in a tube of your body, right? So everyone, whether you're a big person or a skinny person, your body in cross-section is a tube, and there's fat that actually grows in the middle of there, right? So what happens when your visceral fat, that's the fat inside the viscera of your guts, what happens when that fat expands? It's gonna stretch out your tube. Now, think about that, if you have a belt, you okay. Belt size at normal, you get excess body fat, look at that. You got to undo a couple of belt holes in order to be able to buckle your belt, right? So, that's why waist circumference is actually a marker of how much body fat, harmful body fat, and excess body fat you might actually have. So this study in Iran looked at 70 women who were in a diabetic clinic with metabolic syndrome, gave the women 7 ounces of green tea, that's just under a fluid cup of green tea, not very much in fact, and they gave it to them to drink 3 times a day for 8 weeks, alright. And there's another placebo group that just got lukewarm water. The tea drinkers basically drank their tea sort of breakfast, lunch, and in the afternoon. And at the end of 8 weeks, the tea drinkers lost 2 pounds, and they also shrank their waist circumference by almost an inch, and that means that visceral fat got burnt down. Click, 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 whoosh. Green tea activates the brown fat burns down the fuel, burns away the fat, and guess what? Your waist circumference shrinks when you're losing excess body fat. This is the kind of thing that you can actually use to unpack your liver, unburden body fat in your liver. Now in this study, the women who had green tea also had lower blood pressure, they had better fasting glucose, that's a sign of metabolic health, and they actually had better blood lipids as well, blood cholesterol. Now these are all helpful signs that you're losing excess body fat and having a better metabolism, alright. This is going to be helpful if you want to. If you're battling with a fatty liver and you want to actually turn away from it, this is the kind of thing that you actually want to do, lose some excess body fat. Now there was a similar study from Tehran University of Medical Sciences. They looked at 63 men and women, and these people, by the way, were between the ages of 35 and 65, so basically adults, okay, all the way up to, you know, middle age, and they were overweight, and these people had type 2 diabetes. So they've had frank type 2 diabetes, and the study found that if they gave the people 4 cups of green tea per day over 2 months, okay. What happened? They lost 3 pounds of weight, okay. But they also lost almost 2 inches of that. We don't even give it a second thought. So, is bottled water a great source to get your water? No. And I'm going to tell you why. Because now we know that bottled water, almost always, will have microplastics in that water. You know why? Because the plastic, including the plastic that's been reused and recycled plastic, is shedding particles into the water, like billions of particles into the water. You can't see it, but it's there. You drink it, and now you're drinking plastic into your body. Alright, we now know that it's very hard to avoid plastic. We now know that if you look in blood, you can actually find plastic. If you look in heart tissue, if you look in blood vessels, if you look in blood clots, if you look in the narrowing of the atherosclerotic arteries, okay, and pick out the plaque and look inside it under the microscope, we'll find microplastics. They've even found microplastics in men's testicles, okay, embedded in your testicles. That's not a good thing, and it's invisible. So there are microplastics, and even smaller particles are called nanoplastics. And we didn't used to worry about that. In fact, I would say even a year ago, I would have told you, you know, we don't have enough evidence yet to know that microplastics are actually harmful. So, it's probably okay, but cut down your plastic. Now, more recent data shows us microplastics are definitely harmful. In fact, a study from Italy looked at men who were in the hospital having to have surgery to remove blockages from their neck arteries, right? And when they looked into the microscope, guess what? In those blockages they found pi.